Welcome to the There She Goes podcast. I'm your host, Grecia Ruiz, and I can't wait to dive into everyday stories where we find the magic in the mundane. This podcast is inspired by real stories, tiny steps, and brave women. For so long, I was looking for permission in songs, stories, and other people to trust myself, follow my dreams, and take the leap. If this podcast can be that tiny spark of permission for you, then here we go.
When did we first talk? Like 2 years ago?
3.
3. Wow.
3 years ago, yeah.
Well, congrats. It's got to be super exciting.
One final question to tie this all up. You created an actual tangible permission slip for yourself to print, like literally print and use and write on. So I'm just curious if you could talk to us about that permission slip and why you think that that simple act of printing out a real permission slip and writing on it can be so powerful.
I love bringing things into the physical. So you said that you had your board or your wall with things up on it. I have my little wall up here. I think it's really important to show yourself that you're serious about something. So this is something that I had started doing with some friends where it was like, hey, we need to make this real. Like, if this is the goal that you've set, how are we going to make this actually happen? A lot of people will talk about limiting beliefs or reasons they don't think something's achievable, and a lot of that has to do with outside validation or concerns or all these things. And that's what distilled down to the permission slip, where it was like, okay, no independent board is going to qualify you. So let's just go ahead and qualify you ourselves.
Thank you so much, Sam, for coming on this episode. Welcome to the very first guest episode in English of There She Goes podcast.
Thank you. So excited to be here. I didn't know it was bilingual. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's bilingual. Yep. I just recorded my first Spanish episode with my mom, so that'll be something to look forward to as well.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I'm so excited to have you. I'm going to give our listeners a quick introduction to you, a quick bio, and then talk a little bit about why I am so excited that you're here on the show today. So Sam Pantazopoulos is the co-founder and CEO of Vizer, a technology platform transforming how consumer brands connect digital marketing to in-store sales through real-time attribution and intelligent in-store offers. Sam is an active speaker, so you'll get to hear that today. At industry conferences, she writes extensively about entrepreneurship, human potential, and the intersection of technology and consumer behavior. She has been featured in various industry publications and podcasts for her insights on retail innovation and purposeful entrepreneurship. And when she's not building the future of retail promotions, Sam can be found exploring her passion for music, practicing meditation, and mentoring emerging entrepreneurs in San Diego's startup ecosystem. Hello, me. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes to this opportunity. I'm so excited. So let me give a little bit of background as to why I asked you here today. So I asked Sam if she could do me the honor of being the very first guest on my podcast for a very special reason. So Sam and I went to the same University of San Diego, but our paths took on very different paths right after college. So while I spent a few years, almost a decade now, kind of finding my way through the corporate career, Sam right away co-founded her company and started on the entrepreneurship path. So I reached out on LinkedIn 3 years ago, and I was very inspired by her journey, her consistent posting on LinkedIn, by the way. Yes, I did notice that. And I asked if we could chat about her journey. So it was on that call, Sam, that you told me that within the first 5 minutes, you could tell that I was meant for entrepreneurship. And that spiraled the next 3 years of my life. So you actually introduced me in a way to podcasting. You let me know about your friend, Keisha Getmuri's podcast, Empower Her. And at the time, I actually was not a podcast listener. That I knew about podcasts. It just wasn't my thing. Thanks to you, it became my thing. I loved her podcast. Then I actually got to meet Crystal Jacobo, and she was one of Keisha's, I think she did a podcast like group coaching program with Keisha. And so she is the founder of She Is Made for More community. So I went to one of her events. And then at that event, I met Caitlin Anthony, who is the founder of the Beam Life. And she became my group coaching business coach. And so I know it sounds a little long-winded, but it's literally thanks to you telling me about this podcast. It spiraled me into going to an event, a women's event, meeting my now, business coach, and now launching my own podcast. So thank you, Sam, because you helped me not compare my day one to others' days 1000. And it's just an honor to have you here on my day one of the podcast.
Wow, I love that story. It's so full circle and it's so true. Like, I feel like little breadcrumbs happened for us and every company that I've ever spoken to. It's always like they talk to one person or you get one piece of advice and then it just takes you to the next person and they carry you through. So that's so fun. And so many people did that for us. And I love that Keisha, that whole world, like that all connected. That's great.
Yeah, but it started with you. That's why I'm saying that's why I was so excited to have you, because I think it's very important, like what you said. It's just crazy that it could literally have been that yes that you said to that one call 3 years ago was the nudge that I needed. It's, one person, you really can make a difference in someone's lives. And you don't even know, you might not even know like what, you've probably inspired other people with a post or, a smile. You don't know. And so that's really why it was critical for me to have you here to really show everybody like, look at that one yes, like both inspiring. Please say yes, to people when you can and help people out, but also to validate that it might be more inspiring or, than you think.
And it was so obvious in those 5 minutes. I was like, you do not like corporate.
Yeah. No, and I've spoken about it now very clearly. Oh my gosh. Okay, Sam. So I'll talk a little bit about how we met and then dive right into the questions. So like I said, our paths we took on different paths after graduation, went to the same school. So I've spent the past decade navigating back to entrepreneurship, which I always knew I wanted, just didn't quite find my way. I'm finding my way now, but you immediately set out on that path. So could you walk me through like your early journey of starting Vizer, and then sharing more with our listeners about what your company does and what inspired you to create it in the first place?
Absolutely. And it definitely changed from what we started in the beginning when I was in college at USD to what we do now. So it's a fun story. But I studied business at USD. I knew that I wanted to do something in entrepreneurship, but I wasn't sure that I would start something right off the bat. I figured I would end up there, but I thought it was more likely I'd probably work at a startup or somewhere else and learn for a few years. But then I did a program my junior year when I studied abroad, and it was a business model competition. So you had to come up with an idea, pitch it in front of a few hundred people, and there was a competition at the end to win prize money. And the big push of the competition was to come up with an idea that you were really passionate about. And for me, I hated working out at the time. So I had come up with the idea for this app where you would basically be incentivized to work out by being able to give back and earn rewards for participating in healthy activities. We shortened it to Vizer. So Vizer is short for incentivize, and launched that right out of school. And it was super fun. We built that consumer app for several years, but the economics of it got really difficult with COVID when restaurants shut down and studios shut down, which were such big pieces of the model. And fortunately, we found an application for the technology that we had built in more of an enterprise capacity, so selling it directly to brands rather than offering it to consumers. And we pivoted the business. So we still do incentives, but now we power incentives in the background for a lot of the big brands that you'll see if you go to like Ralph's, for example. I like to say the brands that are on the shelf, we do a lot of their programs.
That's awesome. I actually do remember, because I was a Vizer user for a while there. I did collect my points. I also don't like working out, and I could use all the incentives. And I don't know if you mentioned, but yeah, I loved your partnership at the time where the incentive was that you, every time you work out, you get to donate a meal. And so there was a social component to it as well.
Totally. It was a cycle. So you would have the opportunity to donate a meal every time that you worked out, and then you could earn points and use those for rewards for yourself. but you had to go through the loop. So every time somebody completed a workout, that was equating to impact. And we donated millions of meals and had like a good footprint that we could take across the country. And timing is what timing is, and global events happen, and then it got difficult. But I definitely, with early users in the community we built, I think we had like 150,000 people. Mm-hmm. The use case was certainly demonstrated. So never say never. I may bring it back.
I love that. Yeah, I will say I did have people tell me about the app. Like I already knew about it, but yeah, people recognize it, and especially in San Diego. So definitely kudos to you. I'm like, wait, I know who created that app. So just a quick question too about that. You mentioned you studied abroad, and so did you do, first of all, international business? Was that the major? And second, was it semester at sea that you got to do?
Yeah, so I did business administration, just as
Okay.
general major. So that touched in like marketing and management and finance, operations, kind of everything. There was an international business component to it, but certainly not the forefront. I did study abroad on semester at sea, which was cool because they did have international business as a component of that. So getting
Mm-hmm.
to go into different countries and do these different exploratory days where you're meeting with different companies and seeing different ways of working. The social enterprise itself, that was the competition that I was involved with. And it definitely did have like a global lens. So,
Mm-hmm.
how could you make solutions that would work in your backyard, in your neighborhood, but also had national or global application?
That's awesome. I only asked because so for me it was international business, and we had a requirement to study abroad, which is why I was asking since you also studied abroad.
I thought it'd be a fun experience. And
Yeah.
it definitely was. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly it was. It really
Yeah.
spiraled really awesome things. So awesome. So I'm really curious, like, what do you enjoy most about your role at Vizer as co-founder and CEO?
It has transformed so much over the years. So I have a co-founder. I work with my cousin, and he's one of my best friends. And when we started, it was just the two of us. Literally in the house I'm now in, our office was here, and we were having to do everything. So you do product, you do marketing, you do sales, you really, I mean, we did taxes and legal, anything that needed to be done, you had to figure out how to do. And over time, you build out a team and bring in capital partners, and the role changes a lot. So we now have 20 people on the team, and the majority of my role is now management and strategy. Where are we going, and how are all of the stakeholders aligned towards that path? And it's fun. I mean, I've always been really interested in personal development and professional development and organizational psychology. And that, I think, is a big piece of how do you get all of the stakeholders working towards one goal, and of course
Mm-hmm.
the strategic planning of it. But it is quite different than the early stages of building something where you're just so in the execution of the tasks, and now it's more what's the right task and how do we go about executing it.
That's really awesome. Yeah, I'm in that day one executing everything, so I have hope that I'll get to be at that level.
Honestly, those days are some of the most fun, and it almost sounds cliche when people say it, but a lot of people always think like when I get to this stage then I'm going to have so much more support, which is true. You do have more support. Also, you typically have large challenges, so there's always a balance there. But we'll think back on the days where we were literally working at a table in our living room. We're like, wow, that was a really fun season, even though it was so stressful at the time. So having that balance.
Yeah, when you look back, right, it's like, wow, those were also some good days too.
Yeah.
That's good. So, well, I mean, going towards the personal aspiration side of things, outside of, Visor, like what are you currently feeling pulled toward creatively or, personally?
All over the place as of late. I got really into poetry maybe 3 years ago, and I was working with a coach on how startups can be such an emotional vortex. Like there's so much happening, and finding ways to process your emotions. I'm pretty intellectual,
Mm-hmm.
so I was always able to be quite distant from them, but working on processing them more. And that led me to poetry, which was really fun as a way of just downloading what it is
Mm-hmm.
that you're thinking. So I was dabbling with that, dabbling with that. And I had also been learning piano just separately. And then it hit me one day, wouldn't it be fun if I could turn the poems that I'm writing into songs? It seemed like such a great idea. The only problem was I couldn't sing at all. And I figured that could be solved. So I started singing lessons. And I've been doing them for 2 years. And I'm still probably like realistically 5 years out from where I would consider like good. But it's so fun. So I've been writing a bunch of songs and writing music and practicing it. And it's just kind of my side thing, but I love it.
No, I love that. I'm actually, it's funny. So I definitely want to ask you about that because, I consider you, so yes, your bio said CEO, co-founder. You did mention a little bit, I think that you do like, songwriting or music, but yeah, I consider you CEO, co-founder, poet, and on your way to being a pop star. So I saw that you did recently perform a song on your 30th birthday, and you released it, Mr. James Dean. So I've already heard it a few times. I already favorited, love it. So yeah, I mean, how has your artistic journey felt for you? Tell me more about that song, the journey about these singing lessons, and what made you want to do this in the first place.
Oh my gosh, thank you for listening on Spotify. That's so fun.
Yes.
I I really just thought why not? Like I had always wanted to be a pop star slash musician. That was a dream when I was like 8, and I bought a guitar and I just never learned how to play it. And I lived 20 years being like, well, I guess you're just born knowing how to sing. And then I saw an Ed Sheeran video, and he wasn't the best singer. He had to learn. It took him like 5 years. And it was such
Oh,
an
wow.
expander for me where he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't Ed Sheeran as we know him today. And it was such an expander where I was like, whoa, if the biggest stars in the world are saying they had to really practice this and get better at it, then maybe it is something that you could, like any other skill, you could grow and develop. And once I had that, it was like off to the races. So I signed up for the lessons and bought a new guitar, an acoustic, and I just started messing with it. And when I had made the proclamation that I was going to perform at my birthday party, this was January of last year, and my birthday's in November. So I was like, there's no way that by November I'm not good. I mean, I have so much time. And then slowly November got closer and closer and closer. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I am nowhere near ready for this. I easily need 2 more years. But I had already invited, 60 people and made it a big thing. So I had to go perform. And it went fine. It was great. Like I had a great time. And after that I was like, okay, there's really nothing stopping me. So I put it on Spotify.
Yes, I love that. So I did it.
It's like
Oh my
why not?
gosh.
And now that I have, it's like, okay, I could perform again or I could do another one. And then they'll just like
Yes.
slowly get better and
Yes.
better and better is the idea.
It looked really fun, and it looked like it's so funny how it's like to you, you might perceive it as it wasn't, maybe what you were hoping for by that point, but you released it on Spotify. Like that's pretty official to me. It's really cool. And I actually had no idea that you had just learned how to play guitar. Like I assumed I knew about the singing lessons. I just thought that guitar was something you already knew, and then you were pairing it with singing lessons. I didn't realize you were also learning guitar at the same time. Like that's a lot.
Just threw it all in because I was like, if you practice the songwriting, the singing, the guitar, the piano, if you do it all at once, the production, I have a
Mhm.
great friend who's a producer that's helping with that. But if you practice it all at once together, then they all would slowly get better. Versus if
Yeah.
I was like, let me wait till I'm proficient at guitar, that could take 5 years, 10 years. Then add in, then add in. Now I'm in my 50s, 60s before I release the song. So I try to compress.
Oh my gosh. It's just there's so many lessons to that. I'm also an intellectual, and I think I've been for most of my at least career, really operating off of the logical part of the brain, more fear-based and very logical, very risk-averse, and very perfectionist. So to your point, I noticed that I was prolonging launching anything really that I wanted to until it was perfect, or if I felt comfortable, if it was ready. And what's very different about this podcast and why I'm really loving hearing this message from you is that I did what you did, right? Which is where I just said, this is the launch date, exactly what you just said. Do I feel ready? Maybe, maybe not. But this is the launch date, and we're going to publicize it, and we're going to go for it. And yeah, and you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. That pretty much. And so I love this new energy, going with my intuition, and actually it's new for me. But that's why I'm really excited about it, because I'm finally just saying, you know what? Exactly. It's time. And I don't want to keep saying someday.
And everything falls into place. It all aligns. Like, nobody at that party, these are my best friends in the world, granted, but nobody at that party is like there with their little rubric judging the song, right? It was I willing to go up and do it? And them wanting to, be supportive of that process. So it's funny, it doesn't even necessarily have to be good. Like, none of what we do has to be good, but it's like, are you putting yourself in the opportunity to begin with? And then I think that's like a game with yourself. Are you willing to show up or not? And you're showing it with the podcast. So super cool to see.
Thank you. It took some work to get here, and so, for me, what it took is, as I mentioned, it's like having conversations and going to events where I actually saw people live who were living the kind of lives I wanted, getting help with coaching. So it took a lot of steps, but for you, it does seem that I don't know if it's the fact that you've kind of bet on yourself since day one, or if it comes naturally to you, but what would you say led you to put yourself out there and trust that you'll figure it out along the way?
It's a good question. I think it's similar to what you're describing. So for me, having an expander, so seeing something's possible. Like when I saw the Ed Sheeran video, I was like, okay, there is a reference point for this. Or when you're saying I saw somebody on stage living the life I want to live. Like, once I see something's a possibility, my thought, and it has been for quite a long time, is if it's possible for them, why would it not be possible for me? And then from there, it's like, well, what would have to be true? Like, what would have to be done to close the gap between where I am and where this expander is, or this opportunity, or this thing that I desire? And that's usually tangible steps. Like, I had to buy an acoustic guitar, and I had to sign up for singing lessons and sit there and play it. And those are very tangible, like 15-minute tasks. Mm-hmm. But it's really easy to be like, oh, I want to be on stage. But if you don't do the 15-minute task, then you genuinely probably won't feel ready when the opportunity arises. So it's like, how do you just take little bites off the apple? So by that time, you're a vibrational match.
I love that. Lots of intentional steps for sure. But I think the question too, and you probably answered it by the fact that you're saying, micro steps that you can do in 15 minutes, but you are doing a lot, right? You're balancing a lot from your business, like you're a full-time business owner, entrepreneur, and you somehow are making the time for all the things that go on in your life, anywhere from self-care to socializing, but then you still squeeze in your poem writing and your songwriting, your guitar playing, piano playing, right? So how do you balance that? How do you make time for that?
I think if you feel a desire to do something, it's easy to make the time. It's when we don't want to do something, we come up with 100 other things to do. But with the poems, for example, I was doing a little challenge last year where I had to write a poem a day. So the goal was to get to 365 poems by the end of the year. And how I did that is I would use the Notes app on my phone to store the poems. So there was always 15 minutes in my day where I was at an in-person meeting and somebody's running 10 minutes late. Or I'm sitting on a plane, or I'm sitting at the airport, or that I would typically go on Instagram and just scroll. But I knew I hadn't done my poem of the day. So I would have to go to my Notes app before I could go do something mindless on social media. And not that I have anything wrong with scrolling. I love scrolling. But or I'm home and it's like, what's really going to recharge me more? 15 minutes of scrolling or going and playing my guitar for 15 minutes? And I would film all of the practice sessions so I could listen to how I was getting better over time. So there was like an asset that was being created too, almost, to keep me accountable to it versus like 15 minutes of just kind of messing around. So finding little ways to work it in that are consistent enough to become a habit. By 4 months into the year last year, it was like automatic. Oh, I have 10 minutes. I'm going to go to my notes app because I'd built the habit of doing it.
Building habits is so huge. I definitely wanted to ask you actually, now that you framed that, the consistency aspect, right? So I think your poem, you made a whole book of your 365 days of 2025 of all the poems you made. That is a huge testament to consistency, right? And that's something that I personally, and I know many people do struggle with. So I am really curious, how did you, manage to stay consistent? What does it feel like now that you're able to see the fruits of your labor, an actual physical copy that really represents you putting yourself and doing what you say you're going to do 10 minutes a day, every single day? Yeah. How did you go about doing that?
So it's interesting because there are a lot of areas where I'm not disciplined. Like I still hate working out. I built a whole company around it. And I still like don't want to find the time to do that. I think it's really easy to be disciplined about something you enjoy. Like I really like writing poems. I really like writing music. So when I found a lane that was really fulfilling to me, I like building companies. It was easy to show up for it. So I always encourage people to try to find what are those points where you really enjoy it, it really lights you up, it's a ton of fun, you look forward to it, and it is aligned with like your long-term goals and is creating something of value for you and your community. Like, what is that point? For me, it's never going to be a yoga class. I can get myself in the headspace of it, but like, it's never going to be going to the gym. Versus doing something creative in any kind of vehicle, I can get pretty excited to do that and show up consistently and put in the effort and the time.
That's so good. I feel like that is exactly where I started, my intuition, and I was overriding it, right? Because it's like, okay, why for the life of me can I not, force myself to sit down and do my work when it came to my corporate job? But you'll quickly find me spending hours and hours and hours like researching, like business models, or like what else can I do with my creativity? How can I turn this into a business? How can I connect with people? There were so many moments that were very clear that I was not aligned. And so I really encourage that too. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because those pockets, like listen to that, because you're so right. You can be way more consistent when it actually matters. And so for you, how did you find, because I think some people don't even know what they like, right? That really could be step one. So how did you even figure out, oh, I like writing poems. I actually like songwriting or turning my poems into songs. I want to learn guitar. Like, how did you even know that's something you liked?
Intuition, I think, is really big. I think going back to what we liked as kids is a really good indicator. I'm very spiritual. So I'm a big believer that we have gifts and callings and we're here with purpose. And I think that, whether you believe that or not, I do think that there is often a connection between what really interested people as kids and what lit them up and what will in adulthood, like maybe a slightly different version, but there's usually a lane. And over time, I think a lot of people will suppress that. Like, oh, it's not productive, or it's not valuable, or it's not the path I'm supposed to walk. There's a lot of shoulds. So when their intuition's screaming at them, hey, you're in the wrong path. This is why you're tired, and it's why you're stressed, and it's why you're having these relationship challenges. Like, they're pushing that off. Like, oh no, it can't be that. I just need to make the path work. And it's like, well, hold on. Maybe it is that. So being okay with it, like okay with feeling friction and resistance, and then sitting and saying, if I could be doing anything with my time right now, what would I be doing? And not necessarily to blow up your whole life. Like, don't quit your job on day one because you wanted to be a marine biologist when you were little, but maybe you can volunteer at a local aquarium just to get that spark. And then that could be the breadcrumb that takes you to another, to another, to another. But we have to first be like, yeah, if you want something, why? Like, I've always loved poetry. I've always loved music. Distinct memory of buying this hot pink guitar. It was like the first thing I saved up my money. It was the first thing I ever bought. And I was like, it would be crazy to live my whole life and never explore that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that. They have those like seeds. They just need to water them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. And I too wanted to be a pop star when I was younger, and not just when I was younger. I'm talking like basically till high school, where I was like, okay, what do I have to study in college because I just want to sing. And I think there's something to be said about, there's the side of me that loves singing to this day. Like, I mean, you can see the playbills behind me. So I do, love musicals, love singing, performing, all those things. But kind of, I read along the way too, that sometimes you might think that you want something, or like you want the end goal, but are you willing to do the work that it actually takes to get to that end goal? And not just to get to the end goal, but is that the kind of lifestyle you want to live? Right. So I guess, could you talk a little bit about the difference between, finding a passion or something you're creative about, and it's just for fun, and it's not necessarily something you want to spend your whole life doing, versus finding a balance of actually enjoying what you're doing day to day, career wise. That's, that's how you're making a living, kind of distinguishing the two.
Yeah. My core mantra in my personal life, and it has also kind of extended to our business, is strong conviction, loosely held, which is have a path, like be locked on a path, but be open to information that's contrary potentially to your path. And if you're introduced to better information, then be okay shifting. And I think there's a lot of overlap with that as it relates to dreams and things that we're passionate about, where people are sometimes reluctant to try something because they're like, well, then I'm stuck and I have to see it through to its fruition. And that's not necessarily the case. Like, you could start down a path, you could get more information. This is actually different than what I thought. I don't want this. And you could walk away at any point in time. So having that relationship, I think, allows people to explore more than they would otherwise, because they're not so concerned about the negative repercussions or like imagined repercussions down the line. Can explore, get more information, and then that can determine their next step. And I think there are a lot of times that we do romanticize certain destinations, or we're naive to what the path actually looks like and requires. I think I would hate being a professional pop star, even if I had the skill level to do it, which I do not. But it's a really difficult life to be on the road and to be that public facing. Like, I think fame would be terrible. So there are so many aspects of that where it's like, oh, for me, this is a hobby, like skill level and desire and alignment, but I love it. And that's perfectly okay. And then I think my skill set fits well in a tech company. That makes sense. But if I was doing that 24 hours a day, I would go insane. Like, I need my 15 minutes of music.
Yep.
So finding the balance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny. That's actually what I had to learn too the hard way, is that exactly what you said. I'm like, wait, I don't actually want to be a pop star. I love singing, don't get me wrong. I mean, that part of it I could do for a while, but I can't do being such a public figure to that degree, and specifically touring, the world, not really having that stability, practice, 80% of it at least is like practicing and rehearsals. And, we only see like 10, maybe 20%. And even just being in a performance background for, years, I had to recognize that and come to terms with it myself too. Yeah. You have to find the balance. So I wanted to pivot back to, speaking of, you talked about strong convictions, loosely held is how you said it. Yeah, I really like that, because my big thing is the reason that it took me so long to find my way back into entrepreneurship, into an alignment, even within my current corporate career. So I'm still in corporate. However, I was able to pivot into a job I actually really enjoy. So it's like, cool. Now I'm feeling more nourished and refreshed in my corporate life so that I can build on the side, because I was in a situation where I really did not have those. I mean, even if I did have those 15 minutes, I wasn't feeling, well enough to spend those 15 minutes for myself. Now, thankfully, I am. So my entire thing is about it's okay to change your mind. I think pivoting is super important, but I really, for myself, it was very hard to give me permission to change my mind. And I'm sure that there are others out there listening who also struggle with permission. So can you talk to me about how you pivoted, at least when it came to Vizer, and how pivoting in general is an important skill as an entrepreneur and in your life?
Vizer was really by requirement rather than preference. Like, I loved our consumer app and released it at the last possible moment that I could. Like, it was really a market shift, and it was the next logical step. Like, moving from consumer to B2B was the only rational option as I looked at it. So that kind of forced my hand in an extent, but I'm really grateful for it because I was probably 25, I think, 26 at the time. And it was such a hard lesson in how valuable pivoting can be. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely the right move. It opened up so much opportunity for us, but it was emotionally really difficult to go through that. So to compress that lesson earlier in life, I think was really a gift. As I look at it now, I think life is so brief. It's so brief. And I just wrote a post about this the other day, but I don't think that as a culture we really engage with the fact that we're going to die. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we know it, but we don't really see it and we don't really talk about it. So it's kind of in movies and it's just this illusory concept, like, oh, one day, but that's like not coming for me anytime soon. And it's not true. Like, for everybody, it actually could be at any point in time. We have no idea. Mm-hmm. And given how short or brief life really is and how uninfluenced or impacted most people are by our choices, it's funny to me how often we will delay a choice because A, we think we have time, or B, we're worried about how other people are going to perceive it. Mm-hmm. When we know we don't have infinite time and other people largely don't care. So It's very conflicted. But when you look at that framework, it's like, well, who am I actually making decisions for? And how much time do I have to make that decision? And when you feel those pressure constraints, I think it does encourage you to pivot a little bit faster to find what does feel right to you. And then it becomes a positive feedback loop because it goes well. So you're encouraged to do it more and more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for saying that. Like, yeah, boom. Talk about the elephant in the room, please. I know it's so valid and it's so true. I think I had to come to terms with that in my own journey. So for me, it was when I believe it was 4 years ago, somewhere around there. I turned 30 as well. And so I was about 26 and I had a friend unexpectedly pass away. That was a huge shocker for me. And honestly, it affected me for a very long time, both, of course, the personal aspect of the grief, but the realization that we were 26, like you really are not guaranteed to live till who knows your, 80s, 90s. Like, you're not guaranteed that. And that definitely was, and I did mention we talked 3 years ago. So around this time frame, right, is when it really hit me hard that I couldn't keep living the life I was living because I really don't know how much life there is to live, So thank you for validating that because yes, and I think that we really do take it for granted and I do not want to live with any regrets. It's so much nicer to be in this space where it's like, oh, I'm aligned where, that's going to be out of my control. But if I lived today the way that I really wanted to, then I can, go in peace kind of thing. Like, cool, I did what I wanted to do. And also thanks for validating that. Yeah, people, you know what? We all care way more about what's going on in our heads or in our lives. We don't really spend so much time thinking about others or judging others. And yet we assume that others somehow are thinking about us.
Precisely. It's like they have the time. But no, I totally agree. And I think what's the phrase? It's like when somebody loses their health, all they want is their health. Mm-hmm. Like if you have 100 priorities, then you get a terminal diagnosis and you have X amount of time. That's the only thing that's now important of all of those priorities. So to know that as you're organizing the 100 priorities while you still have your health and your hand's not forced per se, but operating from that place while you can enjoy it, like having your health and having the space and having resources and all these things and time. I think it opens up really interesting opportunities for people if they choose to take them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think this is probably going to help answer very quickly the question then, because it really struck me when I think you mentioned, I don't know if it was a post, but basically how, being qualified is a lie, as in, yeah, like you qualify yourself, right? So what do we think, makes us need to be quote unquote qualified? So when did you first realize you don't need permission or credentials to start chasing those dreams?
I think I realized that if you do need to be qualified, it's very clear. Like I could not go be an anesthesiologist tomorrow just because I decide, right? There are certain qualifications. You have to go to a certain amount of school, you have to pass certain tests, and then you have the ability to apply for that job. So it's very defined, actually, when you need to be qualified for something, because you couldn't do it otherwise. So if it is a situation where you could do it, then that means that you don't have to be qualified, like by definition. So with this Spotify thing, for example, I always thought that you had to reach some level before you could be on Spotify. Not true. I realized you just upload the song. It's crazy to me. There was no Spotify police. Nobody audited it to be like, this has to pass XYZ level before we'll put it on. No, just overnight. It was on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. And it blew my mind. With the book, I just went online and I printed it for like $24 and it was mailed to my house. It's a physical book. Again, nobody could stop. And this has obviously evolved with the internet, and I think it will evolve again with AI. Like back in the day, perhaps you needed a publishing house, but I'm sure you still could have probably gone to a corner store and like gotten a book made. So I encourage people to look at the problem set. Like if you want to start a company, there is no independent board that's qualifying you. If you want to be a parent, there's no independent board that's qualifying you. So it's crazy what you actually could do, but then we put constraints on ourselves because the path may be unclear on how to do it. And we've never had access to more information than we do now. So even spending, 2 hours workshopping with Claude, this is what I want to do. Help me put together a plan. What are the actions I should take every week if I want to be here in 52 weeks? Right there. It's like crazy.
We live in the world where that's exactly why I'm here, why I'm doing podcasting, because it's like, wait, who's stopping me? And exactly what you're saying. I really think we live in this beautiful time where all of us can really kind of shoot our shot a lot. It's just easier than it was in the past, with a lot more reach than there was in the past. You just have to go for it, and you do have to work at it, work at it. But you have to keep putting yourself out there. And yeah, I just think it's crazy to me. I'm like, wow, we have never been ever before in a situation where you can just pick up a mic and go, go for it.
Exactly. And look at the opportunities people create for themselves, the people they meet and the rooms they end up in and the stages they're on. And they started with an iPhone in a bedroom often. And when you look at the arc, I think I said or saw somewhere, it was like, if you have 100 people in a race, 99 are going to drop out along the way. So you think you're in a race with 100 people, but really you're just in a race with yourself to not drop out.
Yes, I love that. Yes, thank you. I'm like, that's me right here. That was one of the reasons, I admit, it took me a little while too to finally get on the race, because I don't want to quit. And so it did take me a while to finally commit to the race, because it is a consistency thing. And so, yeah, you know what? This podcast is part of it. One of my big why, I have it on my wall of why, and, besides the impact I'm really hoping to make, and with the stories and the people I'm bringing on, and reflections that come out of here. But one of my biggest why is I want this to be an anchor for my voice, and really a practice of discipline and consistency, because I think you are a testament to what really can be possible for you if you stick to what you say you're going to do.
I'm so excited to watch the show evolve and see all the guests that you bring on.
Thank you so much. Well, I have two final questions. One final question, because to tie this all up, is we talked about permission. And so one of the things that I mentioned too is earlier on, I really realized that I was seeking permission and validation externally for myself. I didn't feel comfortable yet kind of qualifying myself or giving myself the permission to make a pivot in my career. So what that took for me, similar to what you said, is validating the proof out there that someone is already doing the kind of thing I want to do. But for you, you created an actual tangible permission slip for yourself to print, like literally print and use and write on. So yeah, I'm just curious if you could talk to us about that permission slip and why you think that simple act of printing out a real permission slip and writing on it can be so powerful.
I love bringing things into the physical. So you said that you had your board or your wall with things up on it. I have my little wall up here. I think it's really important to show yourself that you're serious about something. So this is something that I had started doing with some friends and I was doing some coaching back in the day where it was like, hey, we need to make this real. Like, if this is the goal that you've set, how are we going to make this actually happen? And a lot of people will talk about limiting beliefs or reasons they don't think something's achievable, and a lot of that has to do with outside validation or concerns or all these things. And that's what distilled down to the permission slip, where it was like, okay, no independent board is going to qualify you. So let's just go ahead and qualify you ourselves. And printed it out. And I think there's something about writing down whatever it is, the dream, the goal, signing it. And that's you telling yourself, like, wow, this is real. I just committed to myself and God and everyone that this is what I am going to do. So if you walk away from that, it's a little bit more of like that wasn't just a dream. Like I actually walked away from something that I physically manifested.
Committed to. Yeah.
And then it's up there, it just reminds you. So these clues, either physical reminders or if somebody uses a mantra or an affirmation, you are qualified. I am qualified. Like that is an affirmation when the voice of doubt starts to come up. Who am I to do this? Who are you not to? Like that will start to become the inner voice if you have enough clues or affirmations or mantras or talk tracks to make that the thought process when that arises.
Yeah. I do not underestimate anymore the power of writing something down physically. And the power of seeing it visually. I mentioned it's on my left. You can't see it in the camera, but I've got like a lot more papers and sticky notes than I've ever had before. I'm staring at my sticky note of my launch date, February 26th, 2026, right? So yeah, those visuals, I think they might sound cliche because it's been said over and over. It's for a reason. It works. It really does work to kind of put it, in tangible, like physical visualization. So I am going to include that permission slip in the resources because I actually really think it's very valuable. So thank you for that. And so if, our listeners could take away one thing from today's conversation, what would it be?
Ooh, I think remember that your life is brief and you deserve to pursue the things that light you up.
Yes. Firmly agree. And you're living it. I'm living it. And I can't wait to show you more people who are living that truth. So, Sam, where can people connect with you?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's always great. On Instagram, just my name. I'm doing a little social media detox right now, but I'm sure I'll download it again in a few days.
You're not the only one, actually. I'm seeing a few people specifically this week. So it is healthy to do that too. So thank you for sharing that. I will obviously include that in the show notes so people can definitely connect with you. And so, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today and not just witnessing, participating in day one. And I can't wait to talk, let's do another 3 years and see where we're at.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Such an honor. And I will absolutely come back in 3 years and I'll interview you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the There She Goes podcast. If this episode resonated with you, here's how you can be part of it. Subscribe, share it with a friend, or leave a review. Your reviews don't just mean a lot. They help the community grow and reach other women who could be served by these conversations. I created this podcast to connect with women on this journey, so please reach out. I'm a real person. DM me on Instagram at There She Goes Club or reply to my emails. I can't wait to celebrate your own There She Goes moments. Until next Thursday, let's see where she goes next.